My brother sent me his graduation wish list, a $6,000 watch, a trip to Europe, and money for a car down payment. I replied, "Keep dreaming." He snapped, "Then don't show up." So I stayed away. And what happened next left even my parents embarrassed by him. I always knew my brother Jake was the golden child. Everyone in the family tiptoed around his ego like it was some fragile relic. And somehow, every time he did something ridiculous, it was brushed off with, "Well, that's just Jake being Jake." I learned early on that in our house, Jakes once weren't suggestions. They were expectations. And if you didn't meet them, well, you were the problem. Still, nothing prepared me for the text I got last month. I was sitting on the floor in my apartment, laptop open, job listings in one tab, and a spreadsheet in the other, trying to figure out if I could afford both rent and groceries. That month, my savings were gone. My hours had been cut. I was behind on a bill I hadn't even told my parents about because I knew exactly what they'd say. "Why don't you ask Jake? He's great with money." "Yeah, sure." Then my phone buzzed. A photo from Jake. First, I thought it was a joke. He'd taken the time to write it out on actual paper in sharp and no less with a heading Jake's graduation wish list. I'm not kidding. It had bullet points, prices, and underlines. Rolex Submariner, $6,000. 2-week European vacation. First choice Italy, but France or Spain acceptable. $5,000 down payment for a quality car. MacBook Pro. Highest model. Non-negotiable AirPods Max, something sentimental from each family member, but not corny or cheap. And finally, no gift cards unless over $500. Seriously, he sent it out like a wedding registry. No context, no joke, no, "Hey guys, just ideas, just a list," as if we were all supposed to take our assignments and get moving. I stared at it for way too long. I actually zoomed in, wondering if maybe it was some sort of prank. But no, he was serious. I could tell because in the family group chat, which I had mostly muted, I saw messages trickling in. Mom's heart emojis. My aunt asking what week the trip was planned for so she could contribute flight points. My dad's thumbs up. No one said a word about how tone-deaf it all was. No one blinked. I was the only one who saw it for what it was. Spoiled, entitled nonsense. So, I texted him back directly. "Keep dreaming, Jake." Not even a minute later, his reply came. "Then, don't bother showing up." And that was it. No one followed up. No one asked why I wasn't responding. It was like everyone was too busy lining up their contributions to notice that the one person who couldn't afford socks that month had been effectively disinvited from her own brother's graduation. I stayed home. I thought that was me taking the high road. Let them enjoy their little fantasy celebration. Let Jake have his luxury haul. I figured if I just stepped back, they could do their thing, and I'd be spared the humiliation of watching my entire family trip over themselves to hand a 22-year-old a Rolex, while I clipped digital coupons to afford frozen vegetables. But that day turned out nothing like they planned because I may not have shown up, but someone else did. Someone who knew exactly what Jake had done to me and wasn't about to let it slide. And by the end of the night, my parents, even my dad, were texting me apologies. Embarrassed. They finally saw him for who he really was. But not because I said anything. Nope. That was someone else's doing. And trust me, you'll want to hear how it all unraveled. I didn't even know my cousin Brianna was in town. Last I heard, she'd moved to Seattle and was working for some tech company I couldn't even pronounce. We weren't exactly close growing up. She was always blunt, sarcastic, the type who didn't sugarcoat anything. But she'd seen firsthand how Jake was treated like royalty while the rest of us were expected to just clap and nod. She texted me the night before Jake's graduation. "You going tomorrow or avoiding the circus?" I told her the truth that I wasn't going, that I'd been effectively uninvited after pushing back on his ridiculous demands. I even sent her a screenshot of his wish list. Her reply, "Unbelievable, Shino. Totally believable. I'll go. Not for him. For you." I didn't think she meant it. I figured she'd get there, keep her mouth shut, smile for the family photos, and leave. But apparently, she had other plans. The ceremony was outside. Lots of chairs, catered lunch afterward, a celebration tent with balloons that spelled out Jake 2025. I saw it all later in the photos. Brianna showed up in a simple black dress and sunglasses. And according to my aunt, who called me the next morning completely rattled, she didn't say a word during the ceremony. She waited until the party. That's when it started. My dad was handing Jake an envelope. Apparently, it had a check for part of the car down payment, and someone passed him a wrapped box with the Rolex. Jake was smiling like he just cured cancer. Every single person was clapping. Someone was filming. And that's when Brianna stepped forward and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Did you already get your $6,000 watch, or is there still time to ask Santa?" The whole tent went quiet. My mom tried to laugh it off. My uncle raised his eyebrows. Jake apparently looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. But she wasn't done. She walked straight up to him and pulled her phone out of her purse. "You sent this to Emily, right?" She held up the screenshot of the wish list, demanded this list, and told her not to show up when she said she couldn't afford it. Jake said something about it being a joke, that it was just banter, but Brianna cut him off. "So telling your sister, who's broke, by the way, because she's been working her ass off trying to keep a roof over her head, to not bother showing up was just casual banter?" Then my dad, who I honestly thought would stay silent, said something that completely stunned me. We treated Jake like he was the golden one. Everything revolved around him. Even you. I just sat there, not sure how to react. He went on to explain that when I stopped showing up, they assumed I only needed some distance. They didn't realize distance meant we broke her down and she doesn't feel safe here anymore. For once, my mom didn't ask what Jake wanted or how to patch things up. She asked me what I wanted. And that's when it clicked for me. I told them I wasn't going to do the usual, smile, forgive, forget, and fall back in line. I wanted accountability. I wanted Jake to hear, directly from me, what he did. Not through them, not in a sugar-coated message, but face-to-face, in front of everyone. I didn't need him to give me some staged apology. I just needed people to stop acting like he was perfect while I was painted as the bitter older sister who never clapped loud enough to my surprise. They agreed. And not in the empty, sure, honey kind of way. They told me there was a family gathering next weekend for Uncle George's birthday, and Jake would be there. So would everyone else. I could say my piece, and they wouldn't interfere. They'd back me up. I had a week to prepare. And I thought about every birthday Jake had stolen the spotlight from, every holiday where he'd show up late, but still be praised just for arriving. The time he completely missed my college graduation because of some side hustle, and no one even blinked. All the quiet sacrifices. All the pride I had to swallow. All the times I was forced to act like the adult when I was barely keeping myself together. I planned what I'd say. Not memorized, but raw, honest, unfiltered. No theatrics, just truth. The day of the party, I arrived on time. My mom hugged me like it had been years. My dad gave me a firm pat on the shoulder. The air felt calm, but tense, like we were all waiting for a storm. Jake strolled in 20 minutes late, as usual, oozing confidence, like nothing had ever happened. He gave me a casual nod and headed straight for the kitchen to grab a beer. No apology, no recognition, just Jake being Jake. But this time, I wasn't letting it slide. Not again. Not ever. He came in like he always did. Loud, late, acting like the center of the universe. Crisp white button down, sleeves rolled just right, hair styled like he belonged in an ad. And that same grin, the one that always got him out of trouble. He didn't even glance at me, just breezed past with a high five for my cousin and a story about someone offering him a consulting gig in Miami. Whatever that was supposed to mean. My stomach tightened. I hadn't eaten all day. Not because I was nervous, I was focused. Ready. I'd spent the week going over everything I needed to say. But as I sat at the long dining table, watching him laugh, brag, and soak up every ounce of attention, it hit me that I didn't want to rehearse anymore. I wanted the truth, raw and real. The party had its usual rhythm. Too much food, background music, small talk, and Jake at the center. He opened gifts, cologne, headphones, a leather wallet. When my dad raised a glass for Uncle George's toast, I took my chance that I stood and said I hadn't skipped Jake's graduation because I was busy, but because my own brother told me not to come if I couldn't afford his wish list. A $6,000 Rolex, a European vacation, a car down payment. I said I didn't want pity, just honesty, that I was done being the quiet one who always understood but was never understood. Then I looked at him. Jake, you've gotten everything you've ever wanted, but never a reality check. Your entitlement isn't confidence, it's weakness. The room froze. Before Jake could deflect, Brianna handed him an envelope from Grandma, her last gift. It wasn't money, but a handwritten letter. As he read it, his expression shifted from amused to blank. Then he folded it, walked out, and never said a word. That night, I got a long voice memo. He said Brianna's timing hit him hard, not because of embarrassment, but because for once he couldn't talk his way out. Grandma's letter wasn't cruel, just disappointed. She told him he'd grown up thinking he was special because of what he was given, not who he was. That love wasn't gifts or attention. It was showing up, sacrifice, patience. She reminded him he hadn't even come to her memorial. She ended with, "You don't need more. You need to feel less entitled to what you never earned." I in the memo. Jake admitted he'd cut me out too easily, like I was in the way. He said the silence in the room broke the spell and made him realize how many people he owed apologies to, especially me. The next day, my mom called and asked me to come over for dinner. Jake wanted to talk in person. I wasn't sure if it was too late. But then she said, he didn't bring the watch home, that he left the Rolex behind. That made me pause, so I went. When I arrived, Jake was already there. No smirk, no performance. He slid a folded letter toward me. Grandma had written one to me, too. She said she saw my sacrifices, my silence, my strength, and ended with, "You can choose to forgive. Not because he deserves it, but because you deserve peace." That I asked Jake if he was ready to change or just sorry he got caught. He admitted he didn't know but wanted to try. And for once, I believed him. I told him I needed time. For days, he stayed silent, and strangely, that silence spoke louder than anything. Then he emailed me proof he'd quietly paid my overdue rent. No strings attached. Later, he knocked on my door. Empty-handed, no speech, just honesty. He told me he'd started therapy, sold the Rolex, used the money to pay off debt, and help low-income students. "I'm not asking you to forget," he said. "I just want to build something that won't make you wish I wasn't your brother." Over the weeks, I saw real change. Our parents asked about me instead of defaulting to him. Jake actually listened, even helped clean up at dinners. At one family meal, my dad toasted me for standing up when they didn't. Jake raised his glass and said, "To my sister who finally called me out." There was no bitterness, only peace. 6 months later, things held. Jake stayed quieter, more intentional. My mom started reaching out just to connect. My dad remembered my birthday early. Then Jake surprised me. He showed me his college applications. He was enrolling in nonprofit management, wanting to help kids who never had the cushion he did. When I asked what changed, he said, "You stopped letting it slide. You walked away." And I finally knew what it felt like to be left behind. For the first time, I wasn't just in the family, I was part of it. Healing didn't erase the past, but it stopped me from carrying it alone. And Jake, he's not perfect, but he's trying. No Rolex, no spotlight, no applause. Just effort. And that's worth more than anything.